Schefter, let's start with the big picture in the first round. Go.
Let's set the table here, Greeny. This is going to be a heavy offensive draft early on. The record for offensive players drafted in the first round of a draft is 19, as most recently as 2009. This is a draft with all the quarterbacks, with all the offensive linemen, with all the wide receivers. We may set a record 9 days from now for the most offensive players taken in round one.
Next, what else are you have your eye on closely?
New England, whether they stay at 3 and take a quarterback or trade out. They've been getting calls. They'll get more calls, and anybody that wants to come up will target New England as 3. We've heard a lot of talk about Arizona at 4, about the Los Angeles Chargers at 5, getting out and trading out of that spot. But what if New England, for the third quarterback in this draft, decides that it's going to move out of that spot and can bounce around? That would be an interesting little situation to follow. And then, of course, the team that's most likely to move up at some point in time would be the Minnesota Vikings. They have the ammunition in round one to make a dramatic move. They have the 11th overall pick. They have the 23rd overall pick. And they have to go up in round one because they can't get a quarterback in round two, don't have a second-round draft pick. The Vikings have been targeting all the different quarterbacks. They lost Kirk Cousins. They know they have to get one. They can call down to 3. They can call down to 4. They can call down to 5. But somehow, some way, the Vikings want to come up. And there's speculation around the league that the quarterback that they'd like to come up and get would be Drake Maye. There's been a lot of J.J. McCarthy conversation with Minnesota as well. We don't know which one they want, but clearly the Vikings want up for a quarterback.
Okay, so now you've just opened up another portal for me here. We've been talking about the 4th pick, to your point, with Arizona, the 5th pick with the Chargers. That is assuming, that is the assumption we've been making all along here, and I'll start with Mel because he invented the draft, the assumption that the Patriots would take the 3rd quarterback remaining. Who is that quarterback likely to be? If someone wants to come up and get Drake Maye, it feels to me like J.J. McCarthy has become the apple of so many people's eye. How do you see that breaking down at 3 and then whoever else it is that might come up?
Well, it'll be pretty interesting if New England moves out needing a quarterback as desperately as they do. So you're going to let somebody jump in and get the quarterback that you don't like. Now, I get it. You don't have to like all these quarterbacks, and somebody may like your guy, and you may not. But J.J. McCarthy, Drake Maye, somebody's got to be a Patriot, or Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. You can't hate all 4, and New England desperately needs a quarterback. For J.J., I look at it subjectively, not objectively, subjectively. I kept waiting to put him in my top 25, waiting to get him around 15, 16. That's where he settled in, 14 to 16. If he goes in that top 10, top 6, top 5, it's overdrafting based on ratings. Now, is he going to be a solid quarterback? He could be. But ranking players and rating players, that great exercise we do, protects you against this overdrafting that takes place. But for a team like Minnesota, desperate for a quarterback, they probably will, or somebody else will. So J.J. is going to be the 4th quarterback off the board, a little higher than where I have him rated.
Well, let's see. Or the 3rd. Lewis, if you're the general manager of my team, which you would be if I owned a team, and I plan to one day, and you had the 3rd pick in this draft, and you needed a quarterback, would you take J.J. McCarthy or Drake Maye?
Oh, wow. I would take Drake because I saw him in person, all right? And I saw the kind of upside and the kind of potential that I think this young man has. And I kind of got to talk to him and got a feel for how he's wired, how he's committed to the game, how he's committed to being great. And I think there's no question if he gets to the right place with the right OC, quarterback coach, quarterback room, wide receiver group, protection, look, all the things that every young quarterback needs, he is going to ascend to levels that you then will be talking about him in the top 5, top 10 throwers in the NFL. I think he has that kind of upside. But that's largely subjective. Look, you know, the objective data doesn't say that he's as good right now as a guy as J.J. McCarthy is. And that's a fact. Look, if you combine the subjective and the objective with J.J. McCarthy, he's one of those guys who right now, look at this, total QBR last year, QBR under pressure, QBR outside the pocket. And then one of the most important ones, QBR on 3rd and 7+, which every time we talk about NFL quarterbacks, we point to, well, what does he do on 3rd down? And not 3rd and short either. We're talking 3rd and 7+ with games on the line. How does he perform? This guy performs. And subjectively, tell me where subjectively in the small sample size for J.J. McCarthy that you can definitively say with your eye, he doesn't look like an NFL caliber quarterback. He can't make that throw. He can't make that run. He can't make that play. Find me one time where you can actually say that about him.
So, Booger, the same question to you. If we are there next Thursday night and the name J.J. McCarthy is called before the name Drake Maye, what will you say?
I'll be shocked because there's no way you can convince me that J.J. McCarthy is the third best player in this draft. I don't think he's the fourth best player in this draft. And we're talking about drafting this quarterback as high as number 4. Can we honestly say he's the fourth best player in this draft? And I know quarterbacks are going to go higher because of the supply and demand. I get all that. But just from a talent standpoint, you talk about the subjective and the objective and all that. But just from a pure talent trait standpoint, Drake Maye is a better quarterback than J.J. McCarthy. I've seen him do it at a higher level at North Carolina than J.J. McCarthy. And we can talk about the sample size and look at the numbers. But from a pure talent standpoint, what Drake Maye can do, I don't think J.J. McCarthy can.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if we've seen Drake Maye do it. You know what? We've seen Drake Maye make some spectacular throws.
Yes.
The Clemson game, we can pull out spectacular snapshots of him making spectacular throws. If you look at the entire body of work in crunch time against great competition, look at J.J. McCarthy's QBR against Ohio State. Look at his QBR against Alabama. Yeah. Look at what he did in crunch time against Alabama. Drake Maye has never even been in those situations. We don't even know how he would react in that kind of situation.
Hit the chime. I'm never going to be able to stop these guys talking today. So, Cindy, we're going to get the draft chime in here this morning. Thank you. That's everyone's signal.
That is good music.
That's the signal. Schefter, very quickly, this conversation we're having presumes that Jaden Daniels is the second pick in the draft. Should we be presuming that right now?
Well, first and foremost, can I tell you how much I love that chime? I could listen to that chime all day long. I need to set it in my ringtone because it's just that is just music to my ears. That means that we're going to hear Mel chime in on somebody any moment.
Sound off. Interesting people saying interesting things. Daniel Jones asked about his health and his future with the Giants yesterday. Listen.
If you're healthy, this summer in training camp, which you hope to be, and going on into the season, you feel you're the best quarterback that the Giants could have to start their season with?
I do, yes.
It's a hell of a question. I mean,
what is he supposed to say?
Actually, no, I don't. Have you seen me play? I'm terrible.
Look at Mel's face. Look at Mel. Mel is legit ticked off right now.
Mel, what
attacking my boy like that?
What is what are the words behind that expression?
A bunch of nonsense. I mean, come on. Daniel Jones had a bad offensive line, no explosive receivers, and he got hurt because he had a bad team around him. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it's Daniel Jones nonsense. This critique of Daniel Jones like he's nothing is ridiculous. A couple years ago, he beat Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Had a heck of a year. You can't do much as a quarterback when you get no support, okay? So let's get him a receiver like Malik Neighbors or Romo Dunes. If they want to go back into the late first or jump up into the second and get a Bo Nix, if Brian Daboll wants to do that, fine, but you got to get the receiver at 6 and help this guy and give him a fighting chance this year to have some success.
Schefter, talk to me. What are we, the Giants are sitting at 6, which at one point we thought was an easy spot to draft a quarterback if you wanted one, and now it certainly doesn't feel that way at all. What is our sense of what the Giants are thinking there?
I think when you speak to people around the league, they believe that the Giants will take a quarterback somewhere in the draft, but that 6 would be a little rich for this particular team at that time. Now, saying that, I will also caution that they've done an awful lot of work on the top quarterbacks. They've done a lot of work on J.J. McCarthy. They had a private workout with him. They had a private visit with him. They had 2 dinners with J.J. McCarthy. They've done a lot of work on Drake Maye. So while you have other people saying, no, the Giants are going to wait on a quarterback, and we've even heard their general manager, Joe Shane, come out and say that they have other needs that are more pressing than quarterback, like at wide receiver, where they could use an explosive, dynamic playmaker like Malik Neighbors, hypothetically, at number 6. Their actions tell you that they've spent a lot of time at the quarterback position. So it just makes you wonder if they could somehow make a move at that spot, which would go against what their general manager has said publicly, what other people are expecting. But there's a lot of work and a lot of time that's been put into a lot of top quarterbacks in this draft.
That's important, and it's important to keep in mind. So, Lewis, I'm giving you 3 options if you're the Giants. 1, you trade up to take a quarterback. 2, you sit at 6, and if one comes there, you take him. 3, you do what Mel said. You take Malik Neighbors, or if Marvin Harrison should fall there, you take the receiver for Daniel Jones. Which are you doing?
Look, this is all contingent upon how do they really feel about Daniel Jones. If they feel like they are done with him.
How do you feel?
How do I feel? Look, I'm a little bit, like I've always been a little bit more in Mel's camp about this, about how, look, John Mara himself said just a calendar year ago, we have done everything in our power to screw this kid up. Just a year ago, he said that. And now all of a sudden, remember there was reports just recently that the Giants are done. They've had enough with him. They can't depend on him on the field. They can't depend on him from an availability standpoint. And they just don't feel that regardless of what has happened around him, they don't feel he is that guy. Look, I have been one who has said this offensive line has been, look, it has been abysmal. They have not been able to get that thing nailed down despite all the resources that they have thrown at it. They have not been able to get him a #1 wide receiver, not even close. And that is something that we talk about with every other quarterback, but we don't give Daniel Jones the benefit of the doubt. You know why? You know why we don't? Because most people never thought he should have been drafted where he was in the first place.
Right.
And he's been trying to fight that his entire career. So what would I do if I were them? If I didn't believe in him, then I would sit there and I would do the work that they're doing and I would pick a guy. I would absolutely pick a guy. But right now, like if you were like saying, if you were forcing me to make a pick, I would say continue to build out this team. Yeah. Build out this team and move on from quarterback.
What do you think?
At some point, Greeny, you have to draft the players and coach them up. They got to coach up Daniel Jones. Worst offensive line, worst receiving core. The kid hadn't had a chance. And at some point, if you're Brian Daboll and you got there and you took this team to the playoffs with Daniel Jones, yeah, he had a down year, but he didn't have anybody to throw to. He didn't have anybody protecting him. At some point, you have to say, my job as a coach is to coach him up. I've seen him do it at a high level. Can I coach him up to do it again? But what happens is we say, you know what? Instead of me investing in my coaching, what I'm going to do is go draft the next hot flavor, and he'll be better. That's not always the case.
Let me just throw something else at you, though. And he didn't have a bad year. He got hurt, and that's what happened. He always gets hurt. That's one of the problems. One of the things that is it's not an opinion. It is just a statement of fact, is he has had a lot of trouble staying on the field, and that it is its own issue.
That's its own issue, Green. A lot of these guys get hurt. Now, to me, a bigger issue than the injury is the fumbles and him turning the football over. That's a bigger issue to me than the injury history.
Look, Daniel Jones isn't trying to get hurt, all right?
Oh,
so, look, what I'm saying, though, is this. What I'm saying, though, is this. If you feel as though his future availability is something that jeopardizes what you were trying to get done, if that's another thing that is in the negative column, then move on from him. That's fine with it. You know, quite honestly, I don't care what they do. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot dismiss what John Mara, the owner of the team, said himself. You can't dismiss it, but everybody wants to because no one thought he should have been drafted where he was drafted in the first place. And they're biased. It's as simple as that. It really is.
All right, give me Cindy, give me the chime because we're going to run out of time here, and I can't. Thank you. Schefter, final word. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are injury issues, there are fumbling issues, and the Giants are going to take a quarterback somewhere in the draft. The question that they're going to have to decide is, do they do it at 6 ahead of one of the top-rated elite wide receiver prospects in this draft? That'll be the big decision the Giants make in the next 9 days.
Well, I mean, Mel has them mocked to get Bo Nix in the second round. The question is Nix going to still be available by the time that swings around again?
He should.
I know you think he should, but I'm not.
He should be.
What should happen and what actually happens are not always the same thing.